Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. This is our first show of our third season, and we have a terrific guest with us. Rich Dworsky, for the last 23 years, has been the pianist and music director for Garrison Keillor's Prairie Home Companion, which broadcasts to an audience of over 4 million people in the United States, as well as overseas audiences on England's BBC, Australia's ABC, and the Armed Forces Radio Network. Every week, Rich provides the theatrical underscoring of the show, leads the house band, and performs as a featured soloist. Since 1986, he has performed with a who's who of some of the finest musicians in America, including, but not limited to, James Taylor, Chet Atkins, Carole King, Yo-Yo Ma, the Everly Brothers, Wynton Marsalis, and Paul Simon. He has appeared on many of Garrison Keillor's CDs, including 5 of them that were nominated for Grammys, and on TV specials on the Disney Channel, PBS, and the BBC. He is also a synthesizer player, a recording engineer, and a producer. He is stepping to the front of the stage now with his new CD called All in Due Time by Richard Dworsky, which is on Red House Records. I couldn't be more delighted to have him in the studio, and with no further ado, Mr. Richard Dworsky. Rich, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks a lot, Paul. That was quite an introduction. I'm tired just listening to that.
I'm tired reading it. My God, you've been a busy guy over the years.
Yeah.
You, besides playing on Garrison's show, you've done so many side projects, and now you've got one of your mainline projects, your new record called All in Due Time.
That's right. I had the pleasure and good fortune to play with so many amazing people over the years on the show, and I thought, well, hey, why don't I just call them and get them in the studio and do some of my music?
You know, if you go to your website, richdworsky.com, and Dworsky spelled D-W-O-R-S-K-Y.
Very good.
You've got just a huge photo display, and it's literally, like I said in the introduction, a who's who of American music.
Yeah, it's been such a fun ride and such wonderful people, You get to hear them in your headphones and you want to say, that sounds like James Taylor in my headphones. And then you open your eyes and it is.
It's Sweet Baby James. Yeah. How did you get the gig with the Prairie Home Companion? Tell us how that came about.
It was a stroke of luck. My dad, Robert Dworsky, was an attorney and partners with the real estate team, and they owned what was formerly the World Theater and the Schubert Apartments. And 1978, Prairie Home Companion was looking for a home for the show and called my dad. And at that time, the World Theater was boarded up, and they were deciding whether to keep it or tear it down, build something new. And he basically said, just come and use the theater. And he was very generous and said, just pay me for the utilities, whatever it costs to heat the place. So that's how it started. And unfortunately, he died that year, and my mom became the landlord. And she
jacked the rent immediately.
She was a nice Jewish girl from North Minneapolis, knew nothing about business, but had a great heart. And there was a Russian Jewish immigrant named Sima Shumilovsky performing at the Jewish Community Center downstairs to a bunch of little old ladies in a classroom. And my mom dragged the producer of Prairie Home down to check her out. And the producer, Margaret, said, absolutely, she's wonderful, but she should have an accompanist. She should be on the show, but we need an accompanist. And my mom turned to her and said, my son, he can do anything. And she pitched me really hard.
Now, that is a good Jewish mother.
Yes.
Good mother. I mean, we're all mama's boys, aren't we?
That's right. And I performed, first I protested, Mom, what are you getting me into? But then we did the show, and after a bunch of performances, they let me do my own thing, and eventually Garrison said, let's keep this guy. Wow, so I say, listen to your mother. Every once in a while, she's right.
That is what a lovely way to find a job that you've been working at for over 23 years.
Yeah. Garrison tells the story as, NPR purchased the building, and along with the building, they got the pianist.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, and then they, of course, rehabbed it and renamed it the Fitzgerald Theater.
That's right.
What year was that?
1996. Garrison wanted to have some way to honor F. Scott Fitzgerald in St. Paul, and he renamed the theater that.
It's a gorgeous theater. I've had the pleasure of playing there. I opened up for Robert Cray
Oh,
about
cool.
7 years ago. And the acoustics are great.
Yeah.
It's very intimate. And then I saw I've seen several shows there. I've seen Mary Black, the great Irish singer there. But one of the greatest shows I saw of all time was Levon Helm and his band.
Cool.
And my friend, the late, great Sue McLean, got me fifth row tickets. And Levon played on the stage left. And we were on that side just 5 rows in, and it was a master class in drumming. Every style of American roots music was played with such authority, and literally from 20 feet away there was Levon Helm.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was an incredible night. You do quite a bit on the road with the Prairie Home Companion as well. You guys travel all over.
That's true.
How far have you gone? What's your farthest destination?
Well, let's see. About 10 years ago, we did Reykjavik, Iceland.
Where I've also played, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Did you get a chance to sample their national drink? It's known as Black Death, called Brennivin.
I did not. I'm really boring. I'm a vegetarian and a teetotaler, so I'm not your party guy.
Okay. So you got it. I know, because you were in Reykjavik with the Prairie Home Companion.
Yeah.
I was just listening a few weeks ago, and there was a rebroadcast from a show in Hawaii.
Ooh.
And but how many states have you played? Almost all of them, I'd imagine.
I think so, yeah.
So how many shows does Garrison do a year?
We usually do about 34.
Wow.
But that's been expanded because we've been doing these summer tours. We did one last year where we did 30 cities in about 36 days.
Wow.
Garrison is pretty hard to keep up with.
Yeah, he's a hard-working guy.
And we do cruises. We've got a cruise coming up this summer.
Wow.
We've done Alaska, the Norwegian fjords, the Caribbean, the Baltic.
Wow. It must have been fun for you. I think the Prairie Home Companion actually started in around 73, 74?
74, McAllister College.
And I remember seeing a show at St. Scholastica with Garrison, and I think at that time he had Sean Blackburn and Dakota Dave Hall.
Sure.
And it was a big deal. And at the time, Garrison and company drove around the state in a small RV. Now I'm sure it's cushier confines, how you travel. But so I have been, Garrison Keillor's been on my personal radar with the rest of Minnesota and then the Midwest for going on 4 decades. But 1986, when you got involved, it was still expanding at that point. Mm-hmm. It must have been really exciting just to see not only the caliber of guests he was bringing in for you to play with, but just to see the response when you go from city to city to play for these people you've never seen but have heard you on the radio.
Yeah, it was quite a phenomenon, and he ended the show in 1987 for a couple of years and went off to Denmark.
Right.
And so it was getting a lot of media attention, and we did the last about 17 shows on the Disney Channel as well as public radio. So that was a whole other aspect and a new
and that was
way
called
for the public to find out.
Something Radio of the Air. What was the name of that?
Oh, that was when he decided to come back and split the difference between moving back to St. Paul and staying in Denmark, so they chose New York. And he put together a different show with New York actors and Rob Fisher and the Coffee Club Orchestra.
Okay, before those damn journalists ran him out of town. he and Jesse Ventura. Well, we're glad he came back. It's really been such a part of the fabric of Minnesota. I have, my sister lives in Maryland. She's been listening weekly for years. She loves the connection, the audio connection, the stories, the accents, and just the vibe that Mr. Garrison has brought forth. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things because Rich Dworsky, my guest, has been involved in so many different musical situations. What he's here on the Wall of Power Radio Hour to talk about this week is his new CD called All in Due Time. How long have you been recording and working on this?
This is one of those albums that just kind of came together because I decided it was time to put something out.
All in Due Time.
Yes. I have a studio in my living room, and as you probably know, there's, with this new technology, you can record one track in one location and then collaborate with people all over the country, literally all over the world, either by just sending the files. You can actually do digital patches and play live together. But what I did with these was, I would record when I had a tune, and we were in New York, and I got together with some great New York players. I was writing tunes kind of in the 30s style. I went through that phase. I would watch Fred and Ginger movies and sit there and weep on the couch. And then,
cool.
And then one movie would finish, and they'd do the teaser for the next one. I'd say, okay, I'm just going to watch the first 5 minutes. And before you knew it, I was on the couch all day watching, 30s movies and war movies. And anyway, I went through a phase where I was writing a lot of tunes that sounded kind of like the 30s.
And I believe the one we're going to hear that's going to take us to the break on the Wall of Power Radio Hour is Dr. Wong.
Yeah, and that I got to play with these incredible players in New York: Warren Vichet on trumpet, Ken Poplowski on clarinet, Andy Stein, who was a collaborator on Prairie Home for many years, on violin. And this is my little homage to the 20s. And my doctor, my Chinese herbalist and acupuncturist on the Upper East Side, Dr. Wong. So I gave him the honor in this title.
Beautiful. Rich Dworsky, Dr. Wong on All in Due Time. More with Rich for the whole show.
Number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Food nourishes us. We need food to live. But how are we nourishing the food system? Well, actually, we're throwing a bunch of chemicals and we're making the dirt dead, and then we're adding nitrates to the water, and we're causing dead zones in the ocean. Oh, and we're also causing climate change. We do that with every bite we eat. But we can create something different. We can switch to a regenerative system. And that's what we talk about every week on Food Freedom Radio. So tune to Food Freedom Radio Saturdays at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Food Freedom Radio on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
A fantastic lunch is waiting for you at Milton's, 36 and Douglas in Crystal. Start with their delicious wings, Milton style, buffalo, barbecue, or naked. Or try their famous barbecue rib nachos. They've got great lunch options like their grilled sandwiches, the ribeye, the chicken, and the portobello mushroom. Try the fantastic fried egg with asparagus and ciabatta and their jerk chicken sandwich. Or change it up with a Milton's Cobb salad, a chopped jerk chicken salad, or their warm and satisfying soups. Lunch today will be delicious if you head to Milton's, 36 and Douglas in friendly Crystal.
I'm Steve Conklin.
And I'm Jake Duroff.
We're the hosts of the Mortgage Talk Show, Sundays at 12:30.
Every week we bring you insights on home financing, discussing rates, programs, local and national news.
Whether you're buying your first home or your 100th home, we have tips and inside information to save you money and feel like a mortgage master.
Check us out for more information and email us any questions at mortgagetalkshow.com.
Tune into the Mortgage Talk Show every Sunday at 12:30 on AM 950.
Hi, Matt McNeil for Rudy Luther Toyota. With the road trips we took in December, we're glad we took them in our Toyota Sienna. Whether they're family, friends, or get-togethers, the Sienna was always the most comfortable way to drive. Plenty of room for all the stuff we needed to take with us, the safety and reliability you get with a Sienna, the extras which make road trips easy, and the room to stretch on out. Rudy Luther Toyota Siennas are the most fun, safe, and reliable vehicles we've ever driven. Test drive one yourself at Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Yay, you survived the holidays. Now what about cleaning up that holiday mess? My friends, it's time you learn my holiday hangover secret. It's Zero Res. Fortunately for you, right now is the best time of the year to call Zero Res. Get 3 rooms clean starting at just $119. And this month only get a hallway clean for free with their 3-room special. Call 9520-RES or book online anytime at ZeroResMinnesota.com. Spell it backward or forward, it spells the same. Zero Res.
was a beautiful piece. You're back with the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa. We just heard a piece by my guest, Richard Dworsky, called Riding the River Home. That was what you might refer to, as you refer to your one of your styles, as bluegrass piano.
Yeah, I've had so much fun being able to play with these, great pickers, as they call them. And I've always wanted, I actually wrote a song called They Don't Want Piano because, as you might know, the string instruments, especially like mandolin, they're very delicate, and they usually like to play with other string players. And actually there's a tradition where like the guitar steps back, or people step back when the guitarist is going to play because it drowns it out. So there's this very delicate balance. And a piano is
It's kind of a ballet around the microphone.
Yeah.
You see a good bluegrass.
They actually, the old style of bluegrass recording was they all stood around one microphone and they would step up when it was their turn, and otherwise they kind of balanced themselves out. Anyway, piano can kind of, squish them all very easily. It's a big, giant string instrument.
King Kong.
Yep. And certain traditions, there's Irish music that piano is very essential, and a fiddle tune and a piano is very common there. But generally in bluegrass, the piano is not part of the band. And I always kind of, wish that I could be a picker, and I've developed a style where I'm playing the piano kind of like a banjo, kind of like a picker. And all these guys have been kind enough to say, come on, join the band for the day. We're not going to bring you on the road, but we'll do it today.
Now, so who was in the band that just played on that track?
So, I wrote this kind of like a fiddle tune for the piano. And then I said, well, I should really have a great fiddle solo come in and take the next chorus. And my buddy Stuart Duncan, who's one of the greatest players ever, violinist, fiddle player, superstar of Nashville, and toured with everybody. And so I got Stuart in the studio, and on dobro I got the great master Jerry Douglas.
The king.
Yeah, he's just totally awesome and a wonderful guy, and he recorded the dobro part. And then I got Glenn Worf, who tours with Mark Knopfler on bass, and Clay Hess on guitar, who tours with Ricky Skaggs often. So it was like a superstar band, pickers, and just had the time of my life.
And you're not really dropping names, Rich, because over your 23 years on the Prairie Home Companion and all the other different shows you've played, these are all friends of yours.
Yeah, I can still drop their names.
Yeah, but I mean, my point is that these are really musical compadres.
Yeah, we're all colleagues.
Yeah.
There's a mutual respect. And that's one of the great things about playing on the show is that, Garrison can organize what would seem like, the strangest amalgamation of different styles. And then usually we call it the closer at the end. He tries to find a way that we can all join together and pick some song and all collaborate. And,
So how does the auditions for the Prairie Home Companion band, whether it's the shoe band, or, back in the day, it was the Powder Milk Biscuit band. Is Garrison, he's sitting in the room or listening to the tapes, or how does it work?
No, there haven't been auditions as such. It's usually like, when the show gets around, and sometimes we'll be in a city and we'll just pick up some players from that city, or after the shoe band, Garrison wanted to just say, we're in Nashville, let's get some Nashville musicians. We're in L.A., let's get L.A. guys, that kind of thing. And after a while, we as a committee kind of said, well, if we want to do this type of show, bass player from Chicago and ex-drummer from New York or whatever. And it kind of fell together that way. It's organically. It's not like auditions and callbacks. And
It's a musical gumbo.
Yep.
Based geographically.
So currently we have a drummer from L.A., Bernie Dressel, who you hear on all sorts of studio stuff, and played with Brian Setzer for about 15 years, and a bassist from Chicago, Larry Kohut, Chris Siebold, guitarist from Chicago, Richard Crean, a violinist, mandolinist from Minneapolis, and myself. That's kind of our core band right now.
Tell us a little bit about the young Rich Dworsky.
Little Richie.
Yeah, Little Richie Rich, who became Richie Rich. Well, we don't know how rich you are, but you're rich musically, that's for darn sure. But tell us a little bit about your background and getting involved in music.
I started piano lessons when I was 6, and that was the era where the piano teacher would come to your house. And he would teach the 3 kids in the house sequentially. So my brother Alan, my sister Susie, we all had piano lessons from Mr. Lionel Davis. And then he would walk up 2 doors up the block and play and teach, the neighbor kids. So that was kind of a full day for Mr. Davis, just hitting our little block of Juliet and in Highland Park of St. Paul.
Wow. I had Lonnie Knight, a friend of yours on, a great guitarist and musician, on a couple of weeks ago on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. And I asked him where he got his first guitar, and his parents actually bought Lonnie's first guitar from a door-to-door salesman.
I didn't know they had a peddler. I knew vacuum cleaners and encyclopedias, but I didn't know about guitars.
Well, that was one adventurous salesman, but it worked out really good in Lonnie's case. Tell us a little bit about, we've got a couple minutes left in this segment. I'm with Rich Dworsky, longtime pianist for the Prairie Home Companion, who has a great new CD out called All in Due Time. So you started to play, when was your first professional gig? Well, and I don't mean professional like you got paid, but on stage in front of people.
Well, I would say when I was about 12 or so. And I joined the union when I was 15, and I got a little article in the local union magazine because it was a big deal, the Rich Dworsky Trio. And I think, our big gigs were a couple pizza places and Gillette State Hospital, which does wonderful work, but I think we played there about 3 times. So that was kind of our...
You still paying your union dues?
I sure am.
I recently rejoined a year ago,
you, Paul.
And I was a member when I was 12, and then for a long time, and recently rejoined. And we've got a great music union here in the Twin Cities. So you were probably in my little calendar book with everybody's names and addresses in there.
Yeah.
I remember we had a meeting with just a lunch with some old musicians, and they had the old book from the mid-'70s, and Prince Rogers Nelson was in there as a member, another longtime member. We are going to listen to a song of yours called High Altitude. Tell us just a little bit about it and about Mr. Levy on the harmonica.
Yeah, I called this the High Altitude Blues because I think we did it somewhere out west when we were in the mountains. I wrote it for Prairie Home. And when you're going to go in the studio and record a blues tune, who else to call but the great Howard Levy, who is just a force of nature, just an amazing genius, pianist as well as harmonica player. But harmonica, he's doing stuff on a blues, marine band, harmonica that only people with the chromatic harmonica with the button can do, but he can do it without that. So he's bending notes, can play any harmonica in any key. And anyway, so I called Howard, and he just plays a great solo on this, as well as Kenny Holman, the great local sax player.
Beautiful. High Altitude Blues by Rich Dworsky. We'll have Rich on for the whole show on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Laura, and I want to tell you about my family's favorite thing. It's our wood stove. We bought it about 14 years ago from Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. And see, the wood stove has actually paid for itself because we can keep the main area that we live in toasty warm with this great moist heat. But more important than saving money, it has actually improved our lives. Having a fire simplifies life. It provides comfort. It sort of takes the chill out of winter.
I'm Peter Solak. In 1977, I started Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, and I experienced the simple joy of warming myself by a fire. I also realized that the place and the way we embrace fire has evolved in a diversity of forms and styles. So at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, we have brought together the widest selection of our fireplace products and technical knowledge in the Twin Cities. Our mission is to use our knowledge to help you choose the design and function that is right for you and your home.
Visit Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces today and find the right fire for you.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.
Freddie, this generation of the baby boomers, people are living longer, so the baby boomers are taking care of elderly parents.
Let's talk about your health, and specifically, let's talk about Medicare. Our show features the concerns of America's 78 million baby boomers in employment, finance, health and nutrition, and even entertainment.
Catch New Beginnings with Freddie Bell, Saturdays at 11 on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Supporting the best local and independently owned restaurants in the Twin Cities has never been easier. You'll find an expansive list of local dining options at eatlocalminnesota.com, from classic American comfort food to authentic flavors from around the world. Experience cozy fireside dining at the Downtowner Woodfire Grill in St. Paul, specializing in fresh seafood, fire-roasted meats, and pizzas, all cooked over an oak-burning fire, and salads and sandwiches, too. Join them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. Located at 253 West 7th Street with plenty of free parking, or online at downtownerwoodfire.com. Burger Mo's is the perfect neighborhood gathering spot before and after Excel Center events or anytime, offering 20 fresh, never frozen burger varieties, more than 60 beers on tap, and happy hours twice daily. Burger Mo's is located at 242 West 7th Street in St. Paul with plenty of free parking and online at burgermos.com.
Warning, stand-up records may cause intestinal distress, fits of insane laughter, instant diarrhea, existential malaise, headaches, nausea, dizziness, vomiting, seasonal affective disorder, more headaches, pneumomono ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. Stand-up records should not be handled by women who are pregnant, may become pregnant, have ever been pregnant, or personally know anyone who has been pregnant. Do not consult your doctor if he's operating heavy machinery. Stand-up records is for external application only. And stand-up records is, of course, good for a few laughs. So remember that's standuprecords.com for the world's finest comedy CDs, DVDs, and merchandise. That's standuprecords.com. The revolution will be hilarious.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Hunter Haas. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 22. Sunday, partly sunny with a high near 33. And Monday, partly sunny with a high near 35. This week's EatLocalMinnesota.com restaurant of the week is Victor's 1959 Cafe. They're open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, offering traditional Cuban recipes in a relaxed, casual, and festive Cuban environment. Located at 3756 Grand Avenue in South Minneapolis, find out more at EatLocalMinnesota.com.
With the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa. My guest in the studio for the whole show tonight, pianist extraordinaire Richard Dworsky. We just listened to a performance of his on his new record, All in Due Time, called TK Real, for one of the stalwarts of the Prairie Home Companion show who passed away a few years ago, named Tom Keith.
Yeah, Tom Keith was the sound effects man from the beginning. He actually started out as Garrison's engineer at Minnesota Public Radio on the morning show, and little by little Garrison started working him into skits, and Tom developed into a collaborative partner and sound effects man. Just a wonderful, wonderful human being as well as an amazing talent.
And it's
and a proud Scotsman.
Oh, nice.
On occasions, he would wear his kilt.
So, over the years, I had the pleasure of bumping into Garrison Keillor a couple weeks ago at the Judy Larson tribute benefit at the Eagles Club in South Minneapolis. And I asked him about Bill Hinckley and Judy Larson, who were two of the original members of the Powder Milk Biscuit Band. But I congratulated him on what a legacy he's left with recording some of the greatest American musicians that are now archived on past shows, the Prairie Home Companion. You've worked with a lot that, we're getting the age world. They seem to be dropping left and right, but you've worked with a lot of great musicians that...
I'm getting to be the old guy now.
I know, me too, that aren't with us anymore. Yeah. Who are some of the ones that you fondly remember that you'll take to your grave performing with?
Well, got to mention Chet Atkins.
Oh, my God. Let's talk about Chet.
Yeah, a huge legend, reshaped how guitars are played and reshaped the industry and discovered people and produced people like the Everly Brothers. And I got to play with Don and Phil on several occasions, and I lost Phil Everly just a couple years ago. But Chet was, extremely humble.
Yes.
And just a real warm and friendly collaborator, and he would do stuff in front of you that you'd think in your mind, well, I've heard this a million times, like, what's so original? And then you think, oh, he's the guy who kind of invented that and was imitated a million times.
Right. Well, and responsible for better or for worse in a way for the Nashville sound, with all the strings and everything else. But an amazing guitar player. I cherish my time. A couple of times I got to see Chet play. And then I would get to see Les Paul play the last time at the Iridium in New York, and then at Fat Tuesdays where he held forth for years. But some of my favorite records are Chester and Lester, Chet Atkins and Les Paul. And I remember Chet, who had a very dry sense of humor, saying on an interview, he said, yes, it takes two really good guitar players to sound like one mediocre piano player.
That's a good one.
So tell us, a guy like Chet Atkins walks in and is going to perform in the show. How much rehearsal time do you get on the Prairie Home Companion?
Well, people always ask that. How long does it take you to put together a show? We rehearse on Friday afternoon. Usually the band gets about an hour and a half to 2 to prep things of our own, and I'll be writing the charts. I usually get material from guest performers that need the band. I get those tunes ahead of time, and I write the charts and try and prep the band so that when the artist comes in, we're not like wasting their time discussing a lot. We're just providing the thing, and they can say slower, faster, take a solo here. And they usually get an hour or so by themselves. So, a few hours on Friday. Then Saturday is a little bit more like a dress rehearsal. We run through it, and we try not to dissect it too much because, there's going to be a live performance in a few hours. And that's about it. So a few hours on Friday and a few hours on Saturday, and then we put it out there.
There's got to be times with a few of the shows where either the sheet music slid off the piano or your headphones weren't working and you were just flying by the skin of your teeth.
Oh, yeah. We have such a fantastic staff that usually we avoid emergencies and catastrophes. But
tell us about a few that have happened and that you soldiered through.
I have to think about that.
Well, while you're thinking about it, let's talk about some of the other performances you've been a part of. Go ahead.
This is just sort of as an addendum, if you want to cut this in. A couple of the other great artists that have passed on that I got the good fortune to work with were Odetta.
Let's talk about that.
The amazing singer and pioneer of kind of the 60s civil rights movement musical background soundtrack. In fact, Bob Dylan credits Odetta as being his inspiration for going into folk music. And she was just wonderful and sweet and humble, and she could sing a cappella, and it sounded symphonic.
Right.
And she would sing songs that you think of almost like children's songs, like This Little Light of Mine. And when she sang it, it was church. It was cosmic. It was beautiful. And Dave Van Ronk.
Yes, let's talk about
another pioneer of the pre-Dylan. Dylan used to listen to Dave Van Ronk in the Village and
stole his version of House of the Rising Sun for Dylan's first record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was Van Ronk's arrangement. The mayor of McDougal Street, Dave Van Ronk. Tell us some more about Dave.
Funny guy, cynical, sharp wit. Unfortunately, when he was performing on the show in my era, he was suffering from some lung disease, and that's, I think, what eventually took him out. Real serious smoker, shall we say.
Yeah.
And so you'd hear a lot of his nasal inhales as he was strumming his guitar, but, fantastic guy, really funny guy.
Right. Now, as long as we're on it, let's talk about a few others. Recently, Paul Simon was on the show. What was that like?
He's, every bit the genius that you would think he is, and at this stage of his career, he's still totally into, focusing on his music. He doesn't just waltz out and, blow it off.
Right. Can I ask you something without giving too much away? I was listening to the show, and it had the new host, Chris Thelion, who's just an amazing player and musician. And, boy, big shoes to fill, filling in for Garrison Keillor. And it felt a little bit like Simon was toying with him a little bit.
Oh, I think that he was goofing around. Yeah, some people thought like maybe Paul was.
It sounded like a bit of an edge, but
no. Paul, can fill stadiums.
Yeah, right.
And out of the goodness of his heart and generosity, he, Chris asked him. Chris has a band called Punch Brothers,
right?
And Punch Brothers opened for Paul Simon a couple of years ago, so they had some familiarity and had played on stage together. And Chris had a couple shows. He's not taking over until next season, but Garrison gave him a couple shows to host this year.
To warm up.
Yep. And Chris just called Paul and said, would you like to come and hang and play on the show? And Paul said, sure.
Well, don't the Punch Brothers, there's some serious legacy there. Didn't some of their fathers were kind of renowned musicians as well?
That I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll look into that. So tell us...
But we got to play the Boxer with Paul Simon. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
It's just, that was another one of those pinch me moments.
You know what? I had a pinch me moment with that same song in Paul Simon.
Oh, yeah.
I played down in 1992. Maybe my last big gig at Farm Aid 5 in Dallas, Texas. And my friend Tom Latimer and I went to Texas Stadium, Cowboy Stadium, for the rehearsal. And there was nobody there. It was Tom and I, a couple security guards. And Paul Simon was trying to teach Willie Nelson's band, the Boxer.
Oh.
And they tried. And now Willie Nelson's band, when they're playing behind Willie, are the greatest band Willie could ever have. But I think they're so used to playing with Willie, when they get another musician, it's like putting on a different pair of shoes.
Sure.
And in a different size. And finally, after about 20 minutes of it, Paul just put down his guitar and walked away. I think he performed it solo the next night.
Yeah.
But I was able to hear the rehearsal of Paul Simon. It was, Bridge Over Troubled Waters, for God's sakes. That's our childhood, right?
Yeah. Well, that's something that people don't quite understand, that some of these rock and roll songs, they sound simple, like, well, you should just be able to play that. But they don't realize that there's little intricacies and subtleties in the way you get from one chord to the other, and substitutions, and verse 2 is a little bit different than verse 1. And
right.
This is all the stuff that I stress out over at my kitchen table with my headphones on and charting it out for the band, because, those are the things that make the artist feel comfortable. Like, oh, they know about verse 2, and they know about chorus number 3 is a little different, and I hold out this note. And that's the kind of stuff that's really important to me as an arranger and charter of the band.
Well, I bet
charts.
The case in point there would have been James Taylor.
Yeah.
Because he's got a lot of those intricacies and little twists and turns and that you don't hear coming. They're perfect when you hear them, but when you study them, you go, oh, that's where part of the magic of this song comes from.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about, before we listen to another track of Rich Dworsky's CD, All in Due Time, you played a solo show in India to 30,000 people. Tell us what that was about.
That was a conference on peace and meditation, and it involved religious and spiritual leaders from all over the world of every imaginable denomination and representatives of the United Nations and the Vatican. And I got to play the intermission, shall we say, for a great artist, Indian vocalist. And I tried my best to find a real piano in India, but there was only one available. It's not like a rental house where you go to studio instrument rentals in New York or something like that.
But if you want a sitar, no problem.
No problem. But, I got as far as calling the American Embassy, and they had something, but, it was like a $80,000 piano that, they would not think of putting on one of those trucks to go down the streets of India. And anyway, so I got a little digital piano and played my set, and it was hot enough that when I went back in the audience to enjoy the rest of the performance, I woke up standing up, and somebody had caught me. I was like fainting because it was about 99 degrees and about 99% humidity.
Wow. And people out there think this musician's life is nothing but Cadillacs and pretty girls and the cush life. but we're not. It's we got Rich Dworsky, a working musician here. We're listening to a little bit of his piano music from his record, All in Due Time. More with Rich in the last set of the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Native Roots Radio is proud to announce we've added an extra hour.
Yeah, Chushke, 1 hour goes by too fast.
That's right, Uncle Curtis.
I'll have extra time to share important information about our secret animals.
And report national and native news from all over the country and Canada.
This new hour is sponsored by Robbins Kaplan, LLP, rewriting the odds for their clients for over 80 years.
We are awake.
Visit the wine bar at Cafe Latte and enjoy a unique handcrafted pizza and glass of wine. The perfect place for an intimate night or an evening with friends. Choices range from spicy Italian sausage and sweet roasted peppers to the one-of-a-kind nacho chicken pizza layered with blue corn tortilla chips. The approachable wine list offers over 30 by the glass with special emphasis on wines from Washington State. End your night with one of Cafe Latte's melt-in-your-mouth desserts. 850 Grand Avenue, St. Paul.
I'm Candy Brothel, publisher of the Twin Cities edition of Natural Awakenings magazine and host of Green Tea Conversations, a news show for people who are on a journey to take responsibility for their health and play a more active role in their family's well-being. Join me every Sunday at 10 a.m. as I interview local experts who share the latest in natural holistic approaches in a fun and informative way. So grab a cup of tea and join the conversation as we awaken to natural health. Visit us at naturaltwincities.com.
Hi, this is Laura, and I want to tell you about my family's favorite thing. It's our wood stove. We bought it about 14 years ago from Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. And see, the wood stove has actually paid for itself because we can keep the main area that we live in toasty warm with this great moist heat. But more important than saving money, it has actually improved our lives. Having a fire simplifies life. It provides comfort. It sort of takes the chill out of winter.
I'm Peter Solak. In 1977, I started Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, and I experienced the simple joy of warming myself by a fire. I also realized that the place and the way we embrace fire has evolved in a diversity of forms and styles. So at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, we have brought together the widest selection of our fireplace products and technical knowledge in the Twin Cities. Our mission is to use our knowledge to help you choose the design and function that is right for you and your home.
Visit Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces today and find the right fire for you.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa. My guest in the studio for the whole show tonight, Rich Dworsky, not only the longtime pianist for the Prairie Home Companion, but a man that's played with a who's who of American musicians, a variety of styles. He also produces and does soundtracks. He's played all over the world. We were brought into that this set with a song he wrote called Your Mischievous Charms.
I call it mischievous, but you say potato, I say potato.
So, Rich, you not only on the Prairie Home Companion, but just your life, you played such a variety of music.
Yeah. I think if you have I got to meet Oscar Peterson when I was about 8 years old. My dad was a huge Oscar fan, and he took me to Freddy's Cafe downtown Minneapolis. And, you know, I was listening to Oscar at home, and I would put little rubber bands around my fingers because Oscar wore rings, and I wanted to be like Oscar. And I would beat on the top of the marble top coffee table and pretend I was Oscar. And I was, you know, a little Oscar fan at age 8. And I wanted to quit my classical piano lessons, and my dad took me to hear Oscar, and it was fantastic. And, you know, those were the days where you could just walk up to the artist in between sets and talk. And my dad introduced me to Oscar and said, wink, wink to Oscar, like, my son really likes you, but he wants to quit classical piano.
Right.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Oscar, you know, didn't need any prompting. He said, you know, it's great to want to play jazz, but I think you should continue with your classical lessons because that will open up the door to so many different styles of music, and it will give you however he phrased it for a kid, you know, it'll give you a foundation. And so I did continue with my classical lessons, and I really thank him for that advice because it does open up the doors to understanding theoretically all these different styles of music and technically. And I did go to music school at the University of Minnesota, had fantastic teachers. And
Scott Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had Dominic Argento, the Pulitzer Prize winning composer, as a teacher, Paul Fettler, Paul Freed. So when you have classical foundation and you can rock and you can play jazz and gospel, then, you know, you can kind of fearlessly, or, you know, be a jack of all trades and a master of none, or whatever. But
well, I'll tell you what, though, I think Oscar Peterson, may he rest in peace, would be happy to know that what an influence he's had on Rich Dworsky. Now, let's talk a little bit about rock and roll, because you spent a little time with Mason Prophet.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, Bruce Curnow, was playing with them, and he was at the time in the Army Reserve, and you had to do summer camp. And we had all lived in L.A. for a while together, and Bruce had to go, a.k.a. the Creeper.
The Creeper, yeah.
Great harmonica player and keyboard player. He had to go do his summer camp duty, and I was just on the verge of leaving L.A., and so I went out on the road and did their final tour.
What was the big hit? Was it Hangman? What was that?
That was one of them.
Yeah.
I remember we played in Central Park at one of those Schaefer musical festivals.
Oh, cool. So you got a little rock and roll blood in you.
They were country rock.
Yeah, country rock. Well, and in the time when country rock with the Byrds and Graham Parsons and the Rita Brothers was really kind of exploding.
Yeah.
They were a Midwest-based band, though, weren't they, Mason Prophet?
I think Indiana.
Indiana, yeah. So, did you graduate with a degree from the University of Minnesota?
I never did. And
well, that makes two of us.
Yeah, I probably have a master's degree in music, except I didn't take Astronomy 101 and Philosophy 101 and all that. But I was working. I was doing all the jobs that people would kill for with PhDs. So, you know, I was a conductor and composer for children's theater. I was doing studio work, 5 days a week. Those were the days where, you know, they had actual musicians come in and lay down a foundation track. And then
in an actual studio.
Yes, and then bring in the horns, and then bring in the singers and the strings, and it turned into a social day. It was such a great time.
How much time do you have? I mean, if you're doing 35 dates a year with the Prairie Home Companion, you've got to have downtime. You've got to relax and enjoy with your friends and family, but you sound like a guy that doesn't take a lot of time off. You go from your gig on the Prairie Home Companion to your next project.
Yeah, salsa dancing, that's my weakness. That's my hobby.
Really?
Yeah, I took private lessons for a long time. And, you know, you don't see me in the clubs too often anymore, but fun pastime and a way to stop thinking about music.
Wow, that's incredible. When I was booking Famous Dave's,
you were?
Yeah, I started, I put a group in that gave me a demo tape on cassette in about 2001 named Sensación Latina. Do you know those guys?
Sensación Latina.
There you go.
Yo hablo español.
Yeah. Have you heard them?
No.
Oh, phenomenal band. Anyway, we've just got a few minutes left here. We've got Rich Dworsky, great pianist, who just got back. What were you doing in New York City? You just flew back
we
yesterday.
did a Prairie Home Companion at Town Hall, and we do it the next 2 weekends.
Now, I got to ask you, because I've been to Town Hall, such a legendary venue on 43rd Street.
Yep.
Can you feel the ghosts of Charlie Parker and Thelonious Monk and the rest when you walk on that stage?
Absolutely. The place is like electric with vibrations of the past. In fact, I always tell people who are there for the first time, take a walk up to the second floor in the photo gallery in the hallway, and you see Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington and Enrico Caruso did his...
You're really good at pronouncing those foreign names.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Caruso did his American debut. Joseph McCarthy did his fiery anti-communism speeches. Wow. I mean, it's just so...
The history is just bouncing off the walls.
And that, for trivia buffs, that's what they did... the folk movie.
The Mighty Wind.
The Mighty Wind, yes.
Yes. I love that movie. And it's actually, I think, the 50th-year anniversary of the band that became Spinal Tap this week, too. Of course, the same cast that did Spinal Tap did A Mighty Wind, which is that reference. We've had Rich Dworsky. It's been a really incredible hour on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. Tell us about this tune on your new CD called I Shall Not Live in Vain. You can get the CD, I'm sure, at the Electric Fetus. Red House Records, one of the great folk and roots labels, is distributing it for Rich. But this is a song with the great Al Jarreau, who spent some time in the Twin Cities in the 70s.
Yeah, I lived with Al for 2.5 years in Los Angeles, and we worked as a duo.
Wow.
So we're old buddies. And
you got some tapes of that?
Absolutely.
Oh, I got to hear them. I got to hear them. Yeah. So it's called I Shall Not Live in Vain. Yeah. Tell us the text for the song.
The text is by Emily Dickinson. And it's so beautiful, and it encompasses kind of like what I'd like to do with my life. If I can just read the poem?
Please.
If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain.
Rich Dworsky, that was beautiful. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks
for coming in.
Great. A lot of fun.
Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. The show is produced by Paul Metza, engineered by Brad Knaber, and recorded at the Minneapolis Media Institute. Fun Stevie Ray Vaughan tribute show coming up at the Minnesota Music Cafe on August 17th. Tickets at crookeddice.org. Support our sponsors. We'd like to thank our guest, Rich Dworsky. And like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.